In the arguments that we have with other people, when you boil it down to the most basic level, what it's all about is two people both saying to each other, I'm telling the truth and you're lying. How often is that even blatantly obvious that both people are taking this stance toward each other, facing each other in a sort of a showdown. That's what we do. And both of them are pointing the finger at the other and saying, you're lying, I'm telling the truth. As basically mirror images of each other. And any basic dispute that you'll see, whether it's political, religious, or any other sort of contest of different opinions. At the most basic level, it boils down to that. Both sides, in a sort of a mirror image, are pointing the finger at each other, saying, you're a liar, I'm telling the truth. No, and then he's saying, no, he's the one lying, I'm the one telling the truth. And it goes back and forth, back and forth. It's a ping pong game. And when we engage in arguments, in conflicts, and let's take it to the most obvious way, is through comments on videos where basically you're arguing with people that you do not know. You have no idea what most of them look like or anything about them, hardly at all. You don't know them as individuals. You wouldn't recognize them if you passed them on the street. And yet you engage in these intense arguments with these essential strangers. So it's not based on personal relations or interactions. It's based solely on the interactions of attitudes and beliefs. And it comes down to, he's lying, I'm telling the truth. He's full of it, I'm genuine. And there's just a couple different forms of this conflict of attitudes. Essentially, when you really boil it down to, it's either, you're an asshole. No, you're an asshole. So it's either we're pointing the finger of accusation and saying somebody's an asshole. That's one of the things that we accuse others of being, and by that meaning in some way a mean or deceitful person. Usually both, with a combination of meanness and deceit, creates an asshole. Or you're a liar, and that, of course, again, is just another word for deceit. So either you're lying, or you're an asshole, or you're an idiot. Those are really the three basic, essential conflicts that we have with other people when we feel that we're in the right and they're in the wrong. What is wrong? What are our objections? What is wrong with other people? Either they're an asshole, or they're an idiot, or they're a liar. That's the basic elements that we base our moral stances on. So those three qualities that it comes down to is the quality of decency, intelligence, and honesty. Those are the three primary colors in our palette of debate and dispute and conflict with other people. Decency, intelligence, and honesty. And on the decency scale, it's a question of who's the asshole and who's not the asshole. Intelligence, who's the idiot, who's not the idiot. Honesty, who's the liar, who's not the liar. Isn't that really what it comes down to? Those three primary basic colors from which our whole spectrum is created of attitude. And attitude pretty much seems to be the thing that matters the most in our dealings with each other. For instance, stand-up comedians. Somebody said, I think it was Bill Hicks, that the supposedly stand-up comedians are pretty much the only people that we actually pay to hear them talk, for the most part. And why do we do this, I wonder? Supposedly, the pretext is that we want to be entertained and amused. We want to have laughter and happiness and pleasure, even if only for the span of 30 to 90 minutes at a time, and we're willing to pay sometimes $30, $50, $100 for a seat in the audience of just listening to one person stand up and ramble on in front of a microphone. Essentially the same thing I'm doing right here, right now, except I don't have the soundtrack of audience applause and laughter going with it. And it wouldn't be too difficult to get some recordings of those sound effects of applause and laughter, and suddenly making myself sound so witty and so intelligent just by having those sound effects going on the video. And it would influence just the same way that laugh tracks on television shows have always influenced people's reception and perception of the things that they hear said, when every statement or movement is followed by audience laughter sounds. And we take things to be amusing that without the sound effects, we would go, yawn, gee, this is stupid. But we hear an audience laughing and we think, oh, this is entertaining and amusing and witty and clever and funny. Ha ha ha. But what makes people say, want to go to see a stand-up comedian? In general, I think it's the notion of appreciation, of thinking, I like to hear this guy talk. Why? Why do we like to hear this guy or that other guy talk with preference towards one or the other? It's mostly, basically, comes down to the question of attitude. Each performer of this sort projects a certain type of his own personality, his own attitude. And sometimes it's a matter of personal choice of the spectrum of attitudes that people actually feel that they appreciate or don't appreciate. There's people that are particularly sarcastic, and there's some people that think that's the greatest thing, and other people that get annoyed by it and don't want to be around that. And that's mainly what distinguishes a whole lot of the people that we actually are willing to pay to see them stand up and talk, and why, the question of why we would choose to pay money or just even devote the time. So, listing a few, there's, let's see, Bill Hicks, George Carlin, um, Eddie Izzard, Dylan Moran, Dane Cook. Who else? Who else does stand-up comedian? Lots of people. But anyhow, there's a list of 5 people, and each one has their own sort of character, and sends off a certain type of attitude. It gives off a type of attitude which we either want to be exposed to more or less. You know, we might, if you were given those choice of 5 different performers and you had to choose to listen to one, what would the basis of your choice be? Would be probably that you feel more attracted or more comfortable with the attitude, the mentality, mostly the attitude expressed by that person. So for instance, here I am, of course, I'm here in my place and it's at nighttime, which is a large part of why I'm recording right now, because it is quiet. But I don't want to raise my voice even if I felt like it, because I don't want to wake up other people in the building, but also because it is quiet and calm, I'm able to speak calmly. There's nothing irritating me. There's no motors running even, and no trucks going by, no noises to disturb me, no reason for me to be getting worked up, at least in terms of my own immediate surroundings. Whereas during the day, there's plenty of irritations that might get me worked up and want to raise my voice. And some people want to hear you getting worked up and want to hear you getting outraged and expressing expressing those sort of feelings of outrage and resentment and anger even. And there are other people who will refuse to listen to anything, anytime you raise your voice at all, and they want to hear you speaking calmly. And I'm reminded of the Conspiracy Clown, which is a guy on YouTube, actually Deke Jackson, and Conspiracy Clown isn't what he calls himself, but it's one of the parody characters that he creates that are very clever. And yet there's this, it's sort of a very vinegary personality that he projects, with good reason for all the things that he's talking about. But we can also discuss the same things. I mean, we can take a different approach, a different tact. In discussing things, we can take the vinegary approach, which is well-deserved, or we can try to speak more calmly on the same subjects. We can just, if we can get in a calm state of mind and say, look, murder is wrong, killing is wrong, war is wrong. And I'm not saying that it's better to do it that way, because in a sense, to actually express the outrage has a lot more validity and to a large degree, the vinegary attitude towards very bad things is appropriate. In a large way, speaking calmly and coolly about things that we should be worked up against is an inappropriate response. But at the same time, the majority of people in our society feel that any raising of voices is, in any circumstances at any time, is inappropriate. And that's why they vote for the same artificial robot mannequin candidates over and over, because anybody who actually has genuine sentiments and might raise their voice to the tiniest degree, they say, oh, that's inappropriate. Well, you know, and for God forbid somebody should use a 4-letter word that's so inappropriate, we can't vote for this person. We have to put our confidence and we have to entrust power to these mannequins who never raise their voice and never publicly use the such and such words that we can't even speak, the unspeakable words, the horrible that which is unspeakable, that must be referred to only by a single letter, those words. So that's where we get these deceitful, crooked, lying bastards holding all the power, and we're left with, at most and at best, merely the ability to comment on what they're doing, not to do it, not to, with the slimmest of hopes that by actually commenting in some miraculous way we might reach people and change their attitudes, which would change their voting patterns, which would change whose hands power gets entrusted to, but that's never going to happen. So what we're left with only pretty much 2 or 3 choices, one being to respond appropriately with the acidic commentaries that current events actually deserve, or to speak calmly and coolly and gently about things to avoid distancing those people who are the majority, who can't listen to anything that has any human sentiment to it, and like the third option is just not to say anything at all. In the end, that's what it all comes down to, because nobody listens and nobody's going to do anything about anything, and the most response you're going to get is people saying, "You're a liar, you're an idiot, you're a crackpot, you're a conspiracy theorist, conspiracy nut, you're a truther, you're a communist, you're a terrorist, you're a traitor, you're an anti-American, you're a raghead, towelhead, nigger Jew." That's what it comes down to, people's attitudes. And again, what it brings us back is that the basic palette of these contests of attitude, the basic primary colors are the questions of decency, intelligence, and honesty. And they all go together. They're 3 parts. It's a trinity. They, like any trinity, they go together. And you'll notice, I've always noticed, that these things are interconnected, so that a person who is a cruel person most often is going to be a stupid person, as well as a deceitful person. These qualities go together. You will find them grouping together. They're not exactly the same molecules, but they do tend to clump and cluster together. The qualities of cruelty, meanness, stupidity, and dishonesty, and deceit. And all the people who fit who fit those qualities, who fit the profile of those qualities, are engaged in this lifelong contest or competition of mentality, where it's 2 mirror images, the yin and the yang, facing off each other as mirror images of each other. Each, the negative, like a negative on a photograph. Each pointing the finger and saying, "No, you're the liar, you're the asshole, you're the idiot." So if you have a dispute, for instance, so let's talk about the Kennedy assassination and all of the logical evidence that if you had any intelligence and you looked at this, you'd have to at least have questions raised in your mind about the validity of the conclusions drawn by the Warren Commission about how many bullets were fired and from what direction they came. But the majority have this mentality that, oh, the Warren Commission wouldn't have lied, the government wouldn't lie to us, and anybody who claims that this would happen is a conspiracy nut and a crackpot, an idiot. So the crackpot encompasses basically idiot as well as liar, and then of course there's asshole. And then people who look at things from the opposite perspective say, well, wait a second, the Warren Commission were liars. And the Warren Commission either were idiots, no, that they were liars, but as well as idiots, but they certainly counted on us, expected the general public to be idiots, to believe such obviously bogus, concocted claims. And also, of course, if they're that the implication that the whole thing was contrived and concocted in collusion with the assassination itself. In other words, the Bush and Ford were instrumental in arranging the assassination of President Kennedy. Then you realize that these people are supreme assholes. Really supreme, mean, nasty, ruthless, vicious, violent people. I don't know if this is going to continue to record because I've had sound cut off in previous recordings. But I'm going to keep going because I'm feeling lucky. In the notion of trinities also, there we have a basic trinity. Decency, intelligence, and honesty. Now, you're familiar with the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. That's kind of it's a Catholic trinity, which is always kind of funny because what it is a hybrid of, it's a hybrid of, first of all, the monotheistic Hebrew God, which has been named the Father, and then the turning that monotheistic concept inside out by making it no longer monotheism, saying it's a dual theism where God actually spawns a human child, and that's the Son. And then there's the Holy Ghost thing, which practically nobody really has any clear idea what it's supposed to really mean. And then there's the Declaration of Independence of the United States of America, which stated that all men have the unalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, which was not an original slogan either. It was an adaptation of an earlier, I believe it was John Locke, who wrote about the concept of natural law, and he was saying in his theories of natural law that there were three basic rights of people in a society, of people in the world, was 1, life, 2, liberty, and 3, the preservation of property. But the writers of the Declaration of Independence thought that preservation of property might be trying to promise more than they were willing to guarantee. So they changed the third item from preservation of property to pursuit of happiness, which is kind of a lot more vague and kind of relates a lot more to like the Holy Ghost. Is like, well, how do you specifically define pursuit of happiness? Well, it's not that specific. It's pretty vague and open to anybody's interpretation. But you've got, so there you got life, and the third Trinity, which I think was undoubtedly based on the Declaration Trinity, was that of Superman, the Superman comics from the 1940s, early 1940s. Truth, justice. Actually, no, even that was adapted. The television show adapted the Superman slogan into truth, justice, and the American way. But the original slogan before the television show in the comics, I don't remember exactly what the third thing was, but it wasn't the American way. It was the never-ending fight for truth and justice, and I have to look it up because I've forgotten. But then when they adapted it to television, they changed the third one to the American way, and I think I see a correspondence between these trilogies, the 1, 2, and the 3, and the the sort of specific one, and the sort of other one, and then the vague third one. The Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, or life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, or truth, justice, and it is an interesting progression when you think about it, because it's like it's like item number 1 is sort of the basic, concrete, all-encompassing item. It's God the Father, or it's life itself, or it's truth. These are really universal concepts. Then there's the second concept, which is a more specific concept, but still, it's a less universal, but still a specific concept. Is the Son, Son of God. It's not universal, but it is a specific. You can say, you can point out that you're discussing something that concrete, that you can make it clear what you're talking about, or life, or liberty. And liberty isn't everything, because life is bigger than liberty. You can be alive and still not be free, but liberty is still a pretty solid item within the concept of life. And truth and justice. So truth is universal. Justice is a little bit narrower, because we can have a lot of truth without having justice. And then there's the third vague, what the hell are they talking about item, which is the Holy Ghost. Who knows? And the pursuit of happiness. That's kind of vague. And the American way. What the hell is that? So there's your trinities, and trinities, and I see the basic question of decency, intelligence, and honesty. Who's the asshole? Who's the idiot? Who's the liar? That's really what all our interpersonal disputes come down to. Who's the asshole? Who's the idiot? And who's the liar? Now, of course, if we could have an objective analysis that would actually, just the computer would say, look here, all the data has been processed, and we can tell you objectively without any doubt who is the asshole, the idiot, and the liar. Those who are the biggest assholes, the biggest idiots, and the biggest liars are always the ones who are most busy accusing everybody else of being the asshole, the idiot, and the liar. And that's the yin and the yang. That's the parallel universes, the mirror images. It's those who are the biggest liars who are always going around saying, Oh, you fucking truthers, you fucking conspiracists are all, you're lying, and you're too stupid to realize that of course Kennedy's head was blown open from the front, and multiple bones were fractured by un this undamaged bullet shot from behind him. Sure, you're the idiots because you can't see how much sense that makes. And you're the liars because you're trying to claim that it must have been a bullet fired from in front of the car, and it must have been more than one bullet. And you're the assholes because you don't want to go to fight in Vietnam, or because you don't want to go kill people in Iraq. You're the assholes. Mirror images, parallel universes, and that's what it all boils down to. So in conclusion, it always boils down to the question of decency on the positive or negative spectrum of that scale. The scale of decency, the scale of intelligence. It's the stupidest dumbasses who are always accusing everybody else of being dumbasses. They're the ones always calling other people dumbasses. The dumbest idiots themselves are the ones that use that accusation the most. And of course, honesty versus lying. Truth versus lying. Honesty versus deceit. So there you go. Enough talk there. This is Bunny signing out.